Call it poetic justice, because all the cliches are being pulled out now. For the Padres, it's do or die. Their backs are to the wall. It's a must-win game. The third game of the 1984 National League Championship Series is just about ready to get underway. But for the fans, it's more than just a game. It's an event.
The real battle isn't on the field necessarily, it's in the parking lot. This is where the fairy tale quickly becomes reality, for the fans anyway. The parking lot here at San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium right now is empty, but by game time, you won't be able to buy a parking space for miles. Trying to fit an estimated 30,000 cars into 17,000 parking spaces? It's easier winning 3 straight in the playoffs. But once safely inside, the concrete becomes carpet, the cars bar stools, and the people partiers in Times Square on New Year's Eve.
We go top shelf for the playoffs, and then we're gonna have pheasant under duck when we get into the World Series.
But back to the game, the real game, fighting traffic. Picture a Charger game, then add rush hour commuters. The final result? Massive congestion. Inside the stadium, the enlarged stadium, the new football seats, which were installed for the Super Bowl, are today being used for baseball. Call it ironic justice. The fans don't mind, they're just happy to get a seat, be it designed for football or baseball.
Oh, I got him!
The field, like the walls surrounding it, is new and improved. A coat of paint does wonders. But after all the hype and all the problems, it all boils down to just one thing. Who does best between the white lines? In the stadium and here in the lots. Graham Ledger, News 8 at the stadium.
Good evening. At 11 o'clock, here's what's happening. Tragedy sometimes ends in hope. Such is the case in San Francisco tonight, where a dying man just received a new heart. The heart from the body of John Eric Hexum, the actor who was declared legally dead last night. His heart was flown up to San Francisco today and transplanted into the chest of an unidentified 37-year-old man. Hexum, star of TV's Cover Up, accidentally shot himself in the head with a prop gun 1 week ago. The strange saga of the teenager who survived Christopher Wilder's killing spree is a little clearer tonight, but no less strange. Tina Marie Rizzico told the Los Angeles Times that her turbulent childhood helped her handle the ordeal. Rizzico said she was toughened by her mother's hardcore lifestyle. The 17-year-old spent 9 brutal days with Wilder. The former race car driver was shot and killed by police after allegedly killing as many as 12 people. Air Force officials in Washington, D.C. are keeping their slightly bruised lips tightly shut tonight. There are reports that one of the 3 parachutes on that ill-fated B-1 bomber did not open, and a cushioning device in the bomber's escape capsule failed. The B-1 crashed in the Mojave Desert last Wednesday. 1 test pilot was killed. 2 are in serious condition. For President Reagan's re-election committee, confirmation of what is beginning to resemble a snowball effect. A new Gallup poll concludes the president would win by an avalanche if the election were held today. But the pollsters also say Walter Mondale could still stand an outside chance because of certain imponderables. With a jar of jelly beans in hand and a re-election campaign in full swing, the president made a surprise visit to a poor area of Washington, D.C. this evening. That's where Mr. Reagan's 7-year-old pen pal lives. Rudolph Lee Hines and the president have exchanged 5 letters so far. The visit was a shock to little Rudolph, as well as a completely unsuspecting press corps. The federal government has given up on putting a Band-Aid on the Tijuana sewage problem. Today, President Reagan approved what should be a more permanent solution. Mr. Reagan signed a bill making $5 million available for a new sewage treatment plant, which will treat sewage from Mexico. Mexican sewage often contaminates the South San Diego County coastline. San Diego's trauma center controversy is alive, but hardly well in Sacramento. State Senator Wadi Deda has blocked a trauma center bill, stalling Senate approval. The bill would force San Diego County to designate at least 2 North County hospitals as trauma centers. Deda's action does not kill the measure, but it may die if it's not revived by the end of the month. For Jerry Dominelli today, another court appearance and another rejected plea for lower bail. U.S. District Judge William Enright refused to lower Dominelli's bail of $5 million, calling it appropriate. Enright said there is a risk that Dominelli might skip the country if his bail is lowered. Dominelli's attorney argued that the J. David founder is a highly successful businessman and would not flee the country. Finally, City officials in Cloverdale, Indiana announced today that their annual turkey shoot was canceled this year, but this was no average turkey shoot, no way. What made it unique was the town folk used frozen turkeys as targets, launching them from a giant catapult made out of old inner tubes. Then they'd fire away at the frozen fowl. One slightly disappointed Hoosier said, "It was really beautiful watching those butterballs fly through the air. It won't happen again this year, though." No reason was given for the cancellation, but what reason could there have been to have it in the first place? You're up to date now. Have a good evening. Good night.
The wind, oh the wind. No one's exempt from its strong wintry blasts, no one. For an Alec Gardens family, this tree is one holiday guest and headache they could have done without. Not even the seclusion and affluence of La Jolla is protected. They never heard it coming, that is until it came crashing through the roof. No one in either house was hurt. How windy is it? Well, last night Lindbergh Field was closed. There are power outages throughout the county, and the high surf is pounding the beach areas. For residents of South Mission Beach, what were once streets are now rivers, and drivers are forced to navigate through the ocean's wind-blown overflow. In sand-whipped Ocean Beach, the area could double for a Sahara Desert movie set. For most people, though, the knockout punch came in the form of blackouts. San Diego gas and electric crews are being kept busy. Thousands of customers from Escondido to San Ysidro are without electrical power. High winds and high tension lines just don't seem to mix. The people who watched the needles at the Weather Service knew the winds were coming. They just didn't think they'd be this strong.
Yes, we were somewhat surprised the winds got as intense as it really did. But the wind should start to diminish tonight, and winds will be much lighter tomorrow.
Tell that to Stardust Hotel employee Glenn Arjona, whose car became a landing strip for yet another flying tree. But possibly the most timely blow came in Claremont. Just hours after a postal rate hike was announced, this happened. Perhaps nature's editorial reply. Graham Ledger, News 8. It's like the second act of a tragic play. 6.5 years ago, fire destroyed the Old Globe Theater. Early this evening, the Old Globe's outdoor festival stage also destroyed by fire.
When I first saw the fire, it was billowing, it was big, but it hadn't completely burned. The walls and everything were still up.
Firefighters were able to control the blaze quickly, but for a while there was concern that the fire might spread to the adjacent zoo. Luckily, it never did. This fire comes at a time when the Old Globe was just beginning to recover from the 1978 fire. The complex still owes $500,000 in damages from that fire. Now this fire ends any hope of wiping out that debt, as well as any future plans for improvement here.
It's a bitter blow.
The festival stage rose from the ashes of the '78 fire, part of the new Simon Edison Center for Performing Arts. Now all that's left is a mere frame that once opened and closed the curtain on 24 performances here. But Old Globe officials vow that curtain will go up again.
We can report that the Board of Directors unanimously this evening voted to build once again our festival stage. Come opening day in June of 1985, the Lowell Davies Festival stage will be there, and on the boards will be some of the greatest actors and some of the greatest shows that this city has ever seen.
The stage was built at a cost of $550,000 in 1978. The insurance check will cover the original cost, but at today's prices it could cost twice as much to rebuild. And while the Metro Arson strike team combs through the rubble for a probable cause, Old Globe directors regroup again and prepare to rebuild again. Graham Ledger, News 8, Balboa Park.
Pitch on the way to Garvey. Hit high to right center field. Way back. Going. It is gone. The Padres win it.
Behind the camera.
Flannery bouncer on the right side. Right through there. We got a tie game. Right through his leg. Here's the pitch to Tony. Line drive. Sandberg can't get it. Here comes Flannery to score. They're waving Wiggins in. The throw to the plate is not in time. The Padres lead 5-3 and Twins at third base. Here's the goose. The 1-1 pitch. A one-hopper to Nettles, to Wiggins, and the Padres have the National League pennant. Oh, Ducker! You can hang a star on that, baby!
We are the champions. We are the champions. Hail to the Padres, for we are the champions of the West.
Good evening. At 11 o'clock, like a chilling slap in the face, but with the force of a good left hook, high winds are belting San Diego County. It's a rather rude entrance. Nevertheless, winter has ushered itself through the door, and right now, there's no stopping it.
The wind, oh the wind. No one's exempt from its strong wintry blasts, no one. For an Allied Gardens family, this tree is one holiday guest and headache they could have done without. Not even the seclusion and affluence of La Jolla is protected. They never heard it coming, that is until it came crashing through the roof. No one in either house was hurt.
How windy is it? Well, last night Lindbergh Field was closed. There are power outages throughout the county, and the high surf is pounding the beach areas.
For residents of South Mission Beach, what were once streets are now rivers, and drivers are forced to navigate through the ocean's wind-blown overflow. In sand-whipped Ocean Beach, the area could double for a Sahara Desert movie set. For most people, though, the knockout punch came in the form of blackouts. San Diego Gas and Electric crews are being kept busy. Thousands of customers from Escondido to San Ysidro are without electrical power. High winds and high tension lines just don't seem to mix. The people who watched the needles at the Weather Service knew the winds were coming. They just didn't think they'd be this strong.
Yes, we were somewhat surprised the winds got as intense as it really did. But the wind should start to diminish tonight, and the winds will be much lighter tomorrow.
Tell that to Stardust Hotel employee Glenn Arjona, whose car became a landing strip for yet another flying tree. But possibly the most timely blow came in Claremont. Just hours after a postal rate hike was announced, this happened. Perhaps nature's editorial reply. Graham Ledger, News 8.
4 Americans are in West Germany tonight, far away from that airstrip in Tehran, far away from the 6 days of terror and violence. But only 2 of the 4 are alive. As soon as the Americans left Iran, the White House joined Kuwait in charging that the Iranian government encouraged the hijackers.
The fact of the matter is that 2 passengers were murdered by the hijackers, more were tortured, and many brutalized for extended periods of time without any effective measures being taken by the government of Iran.
But those held captive by the hijackers say Iran did not aid the terrorists, and that the Iranians, in fact, handled the situation well. It was the hijackers they were afraid of.
It was 140 hours of hell.
Did you think you were going to die?
I thought I'd die every day.
As to what will happen to the terrorists, that is up to Iran, and right now the Iranians are refusing to say what that may or may not be. Air Force officials in Washington, D.C. are keeping their slightly bruised lips tightly shut tonight. There are reports that one of the 3 parachutes attached to that ill-fated B-1 bomber didn't open, and a cushioning device in the bomber's escape capsule failed. The B-1 crashed in the Mojave Desert in September. 1 test pilot was killed. 2 others were seriously injured. The script looks all too familiar for Old Globe directors. The complex's outdoor theater up in smoke, just like in 1978. Although the fire happened less than 24 hours ago, Old Globe officials say the show will go on.
It's like the second act of a tragic play. 6.5 years ago, fire destroyed the Old Globe Theater. Early this evening, the Old Globe's outdoor festival stage also destroyed by fire.
When I first saw the fire, it was billowing, it was big, but it hadn't completely burned, the walls and everything were still up.
Firefighters were able to control the blaze quickly, But for a while, there was concern that the fire might spread to the adjacent zoo. Luckily, it never did. This fire comes at a time when the old Globe was just beginning to recover from the 1978 fire. The complex still owes $500,000 in damages from that fire. Now this fire ends any hope of wiping out that debt, as well as any future plans for improvement here. It's a bitter blow. The festival stage rose from the ashes of the 78 fire, part of the new Simon Edison Center for Performing Arts. Now all that's left is a mere frame that once opened and closed the curtain on 24 performances here. But Old Globe officials vow that curtain will go up again.
We can report that the board of directors unanimously this evening voted to build once again our festival stage. Come opening day in June of 1985, the Lowell Davies Festival stage will be there, and on the boards will be some of the greatest actors and some of the greatest shows that this city has ever seen.
The stage was built at a cost of $550,000 in 1978. The insurance check will cover the original cost, but at today's prices, it could cost twice as much to rebuild. And while the Metro Arson strike team combs through the rubble for a probable cause, Old Globe directors regroup again and prepare to rebuild again. Graham Ledger, News 8, Balboa Park.
Almost like dominoes now, another Manhattan Beach, California preschool has been ordered closed after reports of molestation there. The Learning Game preschool closed its doors this evening for what could be the last time. State officials ordered the suspension today. Learning Game was searched by authorities 1 week ago after allegations that a 3-year-old was molested there. 3 other preschools in the area, including McMartin, have been closed because of similar charges. If a few researchers at UC Berkeley have their way, teachers will be spending more time doing homework before they start giving it out. 3 Berkeley professors are heading a drive that would require teachers to take and pass a test similar to the bar. Then, only after passing the exam, will teachers be allowed in the classroom. The plan would mean changes in California's teacher training and licensing programs. The reported discovery of a new planet outside our solar system has opened up a galaxy of controversy. The National Science Foundation yesterday announced it discovered the planet, which is said to be some 21 light years from Earth. But now a Naval Observatory astronomer claims he made the discovery more than a year ago, and that it's not a planet at all. Then just what is it? Well, he's not sure, but he's checking. Call it poetic justice, because all the cliches are being pulled out now. For the Padres, it's do or die. Their backs are to the wall. It's a must-win game. The 3rd game of the 1984 National League Championship Series is just about ready to get underway. But for the fans, it's more than just a game. It's an event.
The real battle isn't on the field necessarily, it's in the parking lot. This is where the fairy tale quickly becomes reality, for the fans anyway. The parking lot here at San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium right now is empty, but by game time, you won't be able to buy a parking space for miles. Trying to fit an estimated 30,000 cars into 17,000 parking spaces? It's easier winning 3 straight in the playoffs. But once safely inside, the concrete becomes carpet, the cars bar stools, and the people partiers in Times Square on New Year's Eve.
Go top shelf for the playoffs, and then we're gonna have pheasant under duck when we get into the World Series.
But back to the game, the real game, fighting traffic. Picture a Charger game, then add rush hour commuters. The final result? Massive congestion. Inside the stadium, the enlarged stadium, the new football seats, which were installed for the Super Bowl, are today being used for baseball. Call it ironic justice. The fans don't mind. They're just happy to get a seat, be it designed for football or baseball.
Oh, I got him!
The field, like the walls surrounding it, is new and improved. A coat of paint does wonders. But after all the hype and all the problems, it all boils down to just one thing. Who does best between the white lines? In the stadium and here in the lots. Graham Ledger, News 8, at the stadium.
Finally tonight, it was an event which will long be remembered at the Vatican. Jim Laverick, an English medical advisor, recently went with a group of handicapped people on a pilgrimage to Rome. Laverick patiently waited in a wheelchair for the Pope to greet the overflow audience. The Pope promptly entered and blessed everyone, including Laverick. To the astonishment of the crowd, Laverick rose from his wheelchair and walked. A miracle, thought a wide-eyed group of nuns, but a slightly embarrassed Laverick later confessed he wasn't disabled. He just found an empty wheelchair and sat in it, and after the Pope blessed him, he just thought it was time to leave. That's the 11 o'clock edition of News 8. Have a good evening. I just wanted to add a couple of things to this tape. If you hire me, Graham Ledger, you get someone whose level of work is major market quality. Here in San Diego, I write for the #1 anchors at the #1 station in the market, Kfmb TV. So you see, if you hire me, you get major market experience, high quality work, and a winning attitude. If you hire Graham Ledger, you can't go wrong.
A Fresno man suddenly had himself a king-size tax problem today. 63-year-old Rocco DiNublio won the world's largest slot machine jackpot. The payoff, nearly $2.5 million. DiNublio hit the jackpot at Harrah's Club at Lake Tahoe. The win doubles the existing payoff record of $1.2 million in Atlantic City last year. Tonight, one of our writers leaves News 8 for a new assignment. Graham Ledger will be a reporter, writer, anchor, producer, cameraman, and whatever else needs to be done at station KECY in El Centro. This was Graham's resume tape, and soon he'll be in front of the lights for real with his anchor voice. His contribution has meant much to our success, and we wish him well. He'll find new pressures, frustrations, and satisfaction, and will do just fine. We wanted you to know he'll be missed. From those of us who remain to hold the fort, good night and have a great week ahead.
Joe Spencer, ABC News, on Alaska, Wisconsin.
An indicted sanctuary member movement says Central Americans fleeing violence in their countries should be granted temporary legal residence in the United States until they can return home. The Reverend Anthony Clark, a Roman Catholic priest in Tucson, says that sanctuary does not and never did advocate permanent resettlement of the Central American refugees in this or any other country. Clark was one of 16 people indicted last month by a federal grand jury in connection with bringing Central Americans into the U.S. illegally. The California Supreme Court today ruled in favor of United Farm Workers who were mistreated in Riverside County. The state high court upheld a Farm Labor Board ruling that charged UFW supporters were abused by one local grower. The court also granted more legal protections for workers. And in the Imperial Valley, more than 5,000 farm workers did not report to work today to protest low wages and working conditions. Reportedly, 75 to 80% of the labor force responded to UFW President Cesar Chavez's call for a one-day work stoppage. Chavez led a protest march yesterday to focus attention on worker wages and to mark the 6th anniversary of the death of a former laborer killed during a local strike. Mark Anton reports. Korean opposition leader Kim Dae-jung made political history last week when he returned to his homeland. That event was marred by violence, however, when Kim was allegedly beaten by South Korean police. And now, as Jim Laurie reports, the controversy has apparently reached a boiling point.
Two members of the delegation which had accompanied Kim Dae-jung.
King Fahd of Saudi Arabia is in Washington, D.C. tonight, following a meeting with President Reagan today at the White House. It's been 14 years since the Saudi Arabian king has visited the U.S. The two countries haven't always seen eye to eye. And as Sam Donaldson reports, both countries are apparently waiting for the other to initiate a new relationship.
Saudi Arabia are friends, and certainly the warm welcome for King Fahd on the White House.
In other news, Assembly Speaker Willie Brown is vowing support for increased budgets at California community colleges. The Democratic leader says Governor Deukmejian's proposed budget would underfinance the community colleges in comparison with the university system. In a meeting of community college trustees, Brown urged them to set aside minor squabbles in order to unify for greater funding for their schools. Deukmejian's aide Bob Taylor is defending the proposed budget, which is only about half the total of what's earmarked for the UC campuses. Meanwhile, in Washington today, 5 days after first joining President Reagan's cabinet, Education Secretary William Bennett defended the Reagan administration's plan to cut aid to college students. ABC's Gene Miser reports.
Members of the Cocopah Nazarene Church will testify before the Arizona legislature tomorrow in support of a Senate bill which would prohibit the sale of vapor-releasing substances to persons under 18 years of age. Red Eagle Colvin says there have been 8 deaths during the past year attributed to sniffing spray paint and glue, and the problem is not just limited to the reservation.
We're going to...
He was beginning to show the strain of 8 days of questioning. That's what the judge in the McMartin preschool molestation case decided today. He then ordered the defense lawyers to stop their repetitive questioning of the 10-year-old boy. Television star Mr. T met with the unidentified child after the decision. He also said the boy was under stress. 7 workers at the preschool allegedly sexually abused dozens of children there. This has been the 3rd day of the jury deliberations in the trial of San Diego Mayor Roger Hedgecock. The 38-year-old Hedgecock has been tried on 1 count of conspiracy and 12 counts of perjury stemming from alleged campaign violations. The 6 men and 7 women on the jury began deliberating last Thursday. So far, they've asked 1 question seeking clarification on a misdated piece of evidence. The prosecutor and defense lawyers say they think the jury is still in the preliminary stages of its deliberations. Just about everyone in this area is familiar with the Blue Angels, the pride of the Naval Air Force. But unless you've traveled in Mexico, you probably haven't heard much about the Green Angels. As Mark Anton reports, they keep their feet on the ground and their fleet of 260 rolling down the highway.
They provide stranded travelers with mechanical...
A consumer group says tax shelters cost the government billions of dollars last year, and charges most of it ended up in the pockets of people making more than $100,000. We get more in this report.
And that's Look at Sports. Until tomorrow, have a good day and see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Hunter. The new Miss Imperial County is 18-year-old Melody Morrison of Haltville. She was crowned Saturday night and will reign over the upcoming California Midwinter Fair, March 1st through the 10th. Morrison was one of 14 contestants from all over the Imperial Valley, vying for the crown. This, by the way, was the first time a Miss Imperial County pageant was held. The girls were judged in a variety of categories, including speeches they presented on the county, appearance in swimsuits and formal gowns, and personality. Second runner-up in Saturday's pageant was 19-year-old Marie Walker of Westmoreland. She receives a $500 scholarship. 23-year-old Patty Mills of Brawley was named first runner-up and will receive a $1,000 scholarship. The new Miss Imperial County was awarded a $2,000 scholarship and will represent the county in the Maid of California contest to be held in August in Sacramento. The 5'6" winner, who has auburn hair and hazel eyes, is currently attending the University of California at Berkeley. Her hobbies include raising exotic birds, music, horseback riding, and cooking. That's it for the late edition of the Channel 9 News. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for Nightline with Ted Koppel next. Good night.
Graham Ledger. Carl Bell with the weather. Hunter Fennell on sports. This is the Channel 9 News Late Edition.
A joint U.S.-Mexican effort busts open what may be a multi-million-dollar theft ring. Good evening, everybody. This is the Channel 9 News Late Edition. And authorities recovered thousands of dollars in stolen property from this area alone. Some of it was returned to the U.S. from Mexico today.
The recovery is the result of a several-month-long investigation by the Imperial County Sheriff's Department, the Mexicali State Police, the State Department of Justice, and the FBI.
The Mexican authorities have been very cooperative thus far in turning over stolen items to us that we can identify. There was a number of things that have been stripped and tore apart that we're not going to be able to recover.
What was recovered? Close to $1 million in stolen property, 2 semi-trailer trucks stolen from the H&W Drilling Company, several typewriters stolen from Calipatria High School, a Jeep, and a Xerox machine stolen from the Foster Feed Yard, all the result of a tip through the Crime Stoppers program.
We had information that came in through Crime Stoppers relative to a group of people that was operating by stealing equipment here in San Diego, Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County area, and taking it in Mexico and also in Arizona for sales. And it's these type of tips that have been very beneficial in assisting us in not only in the investigation, but the recovery of stolen property.
Some of the recovered stolen material, including another semi, is still down in Mexico because they're not marked properly by the owners. If that stolen property isn't claimed, it will stay in Mexico. And the recovered stolen property here will now be claimed by its owners. Meantime, the Sheriff's Department says one arrest has been made, an American in Mexico, and they expect to make several more arrests in the near future. Graham Ledger, Channel 9 News at the Sheriff's Department.
An American journalist held captive for nearly a year in Beirut is a free man tonight. Jeremy Levin escaped from his abductors today, and he's reportedly in good health. More from ABC's John Donvan.
American officials can
suffered minor injuries. A jury in San Diego has found prison escapee Kevin Cooper guilty.
Carl Bell with the weather. Hunter Fennell on sports. Carl Bell with the weather. Hunter Fennell on sports. Graham Ledger. Carl Bell with the weather. Hunter Fennell on sports. This is the Channel 9 News Late Edition.
Nearly a dozen San Diego County residents are rescued near Calexico after spending the weekend stranded on a mountain. Good evening, everybody. This is a Channel 9 News Late Edition. And about 50 miles southwest of Calexico, the 11 people, all from Lakeside, were rescued this afternoon by several emergency units. The hikers apparently became trapped after trying to climb down the mountain. One person was able to get out of the canyon and notify authorities. Only a few suffered minor injuries. A jury in San Diego has found prison escapee Kevin Cooper guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder. The verdict comes after 3.5 months of testimony from more than 140 witnesses. 27-year-old Cooper brutally murdered 3 members of a Chino Hills family and a neighbor boy in 1983. A 5th victim survived Cooper's attack. 8-year-old Joshua Ryan had his throat slashed by Cooper. Cooper is eligible for the death penalty because he was found guilty of special circumstances surrounding the murders. The jury must now decide if Cooper will be sent to California's gas chamber. With the General Westmoreland CBS trial over now, a federal judge today dismissed the jury hearing the case. The retired general dropped his $120 million libel suit against CBS, ending a bitter 18-week trial. But the decision to drop the suit comes when many jurors were apparently favoring CBS. Here's more from ABC's Jack Smith.
It was the day CBS's Mike Wallace.
Kecy-Tv, Channel 9, El Centro, Yuma.
Graham Ledger. Carl Bell with the weather. Hunter Fennell on sports. This is the Channel 9 News Late Edition.
The polls are closed in El Centro tonight, and the ballot counting is at an end. Good evening, everybody. This is the Channel 9 News Late Edition, and at this hour, there are 2 new City Council members. Channel 9's Carl Bell has this report from the Imperial County Courthouse. Well, obviously, Carl had a little bit of trouble there. What he was trying to tell you was that we have 2 new City Council members, as I told you, Sedelia Sanders and Matt Gonzalez. And we'll try and have that report from Carl a little later in the broadcast. The Tecate and Andrade, meanwhile, border crossings are closed tonight, but they'll be reopened bright and early tomorrow morning. U.S. Customs will reopen ports of entry at Tecate and Andrade for 8 hours a day. Pressure from both residents and businesses helped spark the decision. The two sites will be open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Customs agents closed 9 small border crossings after the abduction of a Calexico drug official and after threats against other agents. Defense Secretary Casper Weinberger is taking the offensive against one of the nation's leading defense contractors. He's suspended today, paying General Dynamics while the Pentagon investigates charges of cheating the government. David Roth reports.
Well, what we've done is contractors. From now on, contractors will have to certify under penalty of perjury that their claims are not inflated. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
As I told you at the top of the newscast, El Centro has 2 new city council members, and we have now that report from Carl Bell. Obviously, we're having some problems here tonight, so hang with us. The Space Shuttle Challenger, meanwhile, was supposed to blast off day after tomorrow, but a series of problems has delayed that liftoff, and today, the shuttle that was to send a senator into space was unceremoniously rolled off the launch pad. It took 6 hours to push the shuttle 3 miles back to its assembly building. This delay poses a threat to NASA's plans for a reliable way to put satellites in orbit. We get more from Bruce Hall.
Paying customers say the cancellation of this week's launch and today's
Overseas now, Soviet President Konstantin Chernenko is dead. Chernenko died yesterday of emphysema and heart and liver complications. Soviet officials reacted with lightning.
Konstantin Ustinovich Chernenko.
Only 5 hours later, a new, younger man told the Soviet people their new leader was Mikhail Gorbachev. Tonight, Soviet TV showed the new leader consoling the bereaved widow as Chernenko began his official lying in state. Workers were shown around the country listening to speeches praising...
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family. And the truth, you know, love is all we need. Beyond the world, beyond the children, beyond the ones who make it brighter day. So let's start giving.
There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. Well, send them your heart so they know that someone cares, and their lives will be stronger and free.
As God has shown us by turning stone to bread. And so we all must lend a helping hand.
Isn't that wonderful?
Powerful.
To get acquainted.
Meantime, the White House said today doctors found a small growth in President Reagan's intestine, but they say it's benign or non-cancerous. Doctors found the growth during Mr. Reagan's physical checkup last week. The president is reportedly in no danger. Many Calexico businesses closed for a few hours Saturday, and flags flew at half-mast, both in honor of Enrique Camarena. More than 1,000 people gathered for his funeral. Channel 9's Mark Anton was one of them.
Under a tight wave of security, the funeral service was held for Enrique Camarena, his memory honored at the same Calexico church where he and his wife Mika were married 15 years ago next week. Streets surrounding Our Lady of Guadalupe were blocked off to allow for special traffic and the crowd that waited outside. Entering were scores of law enforcement officials, including high-ranking members of the DEA, which Camarena served the last 9 years. These local Border Patrol agents marched inside. Also attending were U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, John Gavin, along with U.S. Senator Pete Wilson of California. And, of course, the murdered agent's bereaved family, Camarena's mother, Dora, heading the group. Camarena's body had been cremated the night before, and the urn was displayed for the overflowing audience. The music sung was a beautiful tribute, and the resident Monsignor delivered an equally fine eulogy in both Spanish and English.
Though his years were tragically cut short, he did not live in vain. Of him we can truly say, in a short space, he fulfilled a long time.
The family plans to dispense Camarena's ashes somewhere in the city, the same city where he grew up and called his own. The city where he began his brief but distinguished career in law enforcement. Mark Anton, Channel 9 News, Calexico.
Meantime, Camarena's death sparked a meeting today between Secretary of State George Shultz and his Mexican counterpart. Relations between the two countries have been strained following the murder. Shultz says he's asking Mexico to crack down on drug dealers, but won't pressure officials by using economic sanctions. With so many law enforcement officials gathered in one spot on Saturday in Calexico, the need for security was imperative. Here's a look at how the DEA kept things under control. From the moment Enrique Camarena's body arrived in Southern California last Friday, threats of violence followed. Drug Enforcement Administration officials knew Saturday's service was a potentially hazardous situation, that many federal officials, police, Border Patrol, and other law enforcers offered for a terrorist dream, a DEA nightmare. One DEA official told me there were unconfirmed reports that a half dozen or so Mexicans were on their way here with submachine guns and ready to kill. But those reports were false.
I can't characterize exactly what they were. It turned out they were not valid. But they're the kinds of things we have been seeing regularly. They range from violence to threats to whatever.
Security was tight, yes, but not overbearing. Streets were blocked off at all 4 intersections leading to Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. But those road construction signs would have had trouble holding back a bicyclist, let alone a fast-moving car. Agent Feldkamp told me he was surprised at how loose security actually was.
There was no army here, nothing to speak of in terms of overwhelming security. We had the complete cooperation of the Calexico Police Department and DEA agents from offices in this part of the country.
So, for the hundreds of law officers in attendance, the occasion became dual purpose: to say goodbye to a federal agent, a co-worker, a friend, and to make sure a similar tragedy wouldn't happen here. On this day, they did both. Graham Ledger, Channel 9 News in Calexico. Still ahead tonight, the California Midwinter Fair fared pretty well, and soaring for show in Yuma. Don't go away.
About that at all. They want any piece of information they can get.
Thank you, Steve Croft, at the hospital in Wiesbaden. And so, 17 days after it began, this strange and sad story has come to a happy ending for 39 Americans in the gray dawn of a German morning. Interest on a day such as this, with a story such as this, interesting what sticks in one's mind. Sticking in mind are the quick, tiny portraits of the hostages, the chaos leaving Beirut, the happiness in Frankfurt, But in many ways, the most striking image from today is that picture of the two hooded terrorists spewing out their hatred to newsmen, hooded out of cowardice. This has been a story of cowardice as well as of courage. The courage and steadiness of a flight crew that performed flawlessly under hellish conditions. The courage of that Navy diver named Robert Steedham, who died viciously at the hands of the hijackers. As one passenger remarked, he was the bravest man I ever met. The cowardice of the men who, no matter their talk of the justice of their cause, the cowardice of men who would brutalize another man simply for being an American. The quiet courage of Steedham family that reached into today, offering their best wishes as they mourned their son. Profiles in cowardice and courage. As Robert Louis Stevenson wrote, courage is the footstool of other virtues. For CBS News, Dan Rather, New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
This has been a CBS News special report. This is CBS.
And hold the phone, the sun came out today. We're born again, there's new grass on the field. Around the third and headed for home. It's a brown-eyed, handsome man. Anyone can understand the way I feel. Oh, put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Look at me, I can be center field. Well, I spent some time in the Mudville night, watching it from the bench. You know, I took some lumps when the mighty case struck out. So say, hey, Willie, tell the cop, and Joe DiMaggio, don't say it ain't so, you know the time is now. Oh, put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Look at me, I can be center field. Got a beat-up glove, a homemade bat, and a brand new pair of shoes. You know, I think it's time to give this game a ride. Just to hit the ball and touch 'em all. A moment in the sun. It's a gone and you can't tell that one goodbye. Oh, put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Look at me, I can be. So put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Look at me, gotta be center field. Yeah.
Game. Have you put a goal in your own